Wizards to a bunch of shooters, Pete Thompson. They want a guy that can hit the J from way downtown, like Hersey Hawkins back in the day.
The pride of Bradley.
He's
Nice
the
reference.
last guy that I can remember
There
that was
you
a
go.
consistent three. Dana Barros could hit the three.
Okay.
Dana Barros made an all-star
And
game.
you're forgetting my guy from Creighton. He was okay, too.
He was. Kyle Korver was pretty good.
Of course,
How about
he
Dana
got to play
Barros
with
scored
Allen
50
Iverson.
of
That
them.
didn't hurt.
Yeah,
You think Kyle found himself open outside the arc when Iverson's streaking down the court? Where's the defense going to go?
I remember the game Barros went for 50.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Look that game up. Go ahead.
Okay.
Put that in your genie box.
I
Dana
will.
Barros, 50.
Okay.
Torched, I think, I don't know. My two guesses are Phoenix or Boston.
Yeah,
Maybe Michael
50-point
Cassidy
game,
Maine will know.
Philadelphia.
He joined us now on the Sports Bash
Rockets.
97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Michael?
Not too much, Mike. How you guys doing?
Remember that Dana Barros 50-point performance?
Yeah, man. Number 3 before Iverson on the Sixers. Can never forget Dana.
Yeah, man. I think he was most improved player in the NBA that year.
It was
The
March,
days.
March 14th of 1995, by the way, for y'all.
The days
keeping score at home.
of cheering for guys like Dana Barros and hoping they get you to the 8 seed. Michael, yeah, exactly. Michael, over at 97.3ESPN.com, you've thrown out a couple of names, sources telling you the Sixers going to kick the tires on Ben McLemore. Now, he's an interesting guy, was a lottery pick, and just hasn't really worked out, although his 38% from beyond the arc would be the highest three-point percentage on the Sixers if he came here.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. I think it's it almost just makes sense for them to do their due diligence on a player like that was like you said, the 7th pick in the 2013 draft just a couple years ago, and coming out of college had a skill set that projected really favorably to today's NBA. He has a good size for a wing player, athletic, and can spread the floor. He's a career 35% shooter from three, but like you said, he was 38% last season. He's improved from 3-point range in every season since he's been in the league. And he, the age he is kind of, would mesh well with the Sixers core. And it just seems like, a lot of people, obviously he's been underwhelming. So a lot of people throughout the league are, somewhat down on him, and he could be a guy that is a potentially, a buy low candidate, reasonably cheap price for a guy that you could kind of take a flyer on that could still pan out to be, a half decent and productive player.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple theories that we were throwing around. Michael Carter Williams, who had his 2 best seasons in Philly and then has bounced around, kind of regressed, I guess you could say, and might not even be in the league coming into this year. He's going to be a free agent. Do you credit the Sixers player development for him having 2 good years, and then the other teams that he's gone to, maybe they didn't work with him enough? Or, there's some people that have suggested that him being in Philly and being in a losing situation may have factored into why he hasn't had a success, that maybe if he didn't start his career in Philly, that he would have been more, productive.
No, I don't buy that at all. I mean, he's had 2 opportunities since Philadelphia to prove, that he's even a capable role player in the league. And, both the Bucks and Bulls have given up on him at this point. I think I think the Sixers player development over the past few years honestly deserves a lot of credit. And I think that's some of the reason that they could potentially be interested in McLemore. That's a guy that obviously it hasn't worked out in Sacramento, but unlike Philly, Sacramento is not a place that's been, known for their player development over the past couple of years. I think the Sixers feel as though, if there's any place in the league right now that a young guy, that has expectations in the league could fit in and develop, it would be with other young, developing players under a passionate coach like Brett, who focuses on player development. I mean, you could look, KJ McDaniels is another guy who, obviously was only with the Sixers for a short period of time, but he experienced his best success, in the league with the Sixers. He's bounced around since. Robert Covington obviously was with the Rockets organization before he came to Philly, and the Philly kind of really unlocked his talents. Rashawn, a 2nd-round pick. I think there's a bunch of guys. Nick Stauskas, obviously from the Kings, has improved somewhat since he came here. So I think that there's definitely something to the fact that the player development on the Sixers it has been solid over the past couple of years, certainly.
Hey, Michael, how about J.J. Redick? What do you think the chances are that they make a run at him? And would you rather prefer him or McLemore when you take into account money, age, and fit?
Hey Pete, that's a great question. I'm pretty positive that the Sixers will absolutely make a run at JJ Redick. They have the money, especially in the short term. The team isn't necessarily looking to bog down their salary cap space for the long term, knowing that they have an Embiid extension coming up, obviously a Simmons extension down the road, now Fultz, guys that they're going to want to have the money to be able to keep long term. But in the short term, when these guys are still on their rookie deals and the Sixers have a lot of space, they'd be willing to, pay, potentially even overpay for a guy that they think would fit what they need and could also serve as a good veteran guy off the court. JJ would be a perfect example of that. I think that, they would certainly be willing to offer him, whatever the market is really dictating for his services at this point. Obviously, I don't really have any inner knowledge of his camp, so I don't know what, how he would feel about coming to the Sixers or if he's looking for a team that's slightly more of an immediate contender. But, I definitely think there'll be interest on the Sixers' part. And I think, personally, I'd probably rather they look toward McLemore just because I think he would be a bit cheaper. And, he's certainly been underwhelming, but I think he's a guy that could potentially develop into something with, the talent that the Sixers have assembled. I think it's a guy that you could buy low and potentially build up into, not necessarily an all-star as maybe some had once projected for him, but a serviceable guy, much like they did with, say, Robert Covington.
How about an Iggy reunion? Do the Sixers have any interest in bringing back Andre Iguodala? Is he a good fit?
Yeah, that's another name that has received, some reports that the Sixers would be interested. I don't see the fit there quite as much. I mean, obviously, Iguodala's talent speaks for itself. He's a guy that could really fit any team. But it seems at this point in his career, kind of like he was with the Warriors, he just seems like he's, kind of made for a team that's, kind of ready to contend right now. I'm not sure, exactly what his aspects as far as leadership are. He was a lot younger of a player that was kind of looked to be the face of the franchise when he was here, the first time around. It didn't necessarily go well. I think he's, obviously developed as both a player and a guy off the court since then, but I'm not sure, necessarily if he's a guy that's really going to come in and want to embrace the idea of, developing some of these other guys beneath him. With that said, his skill set would obviously fit on the Sixers coming off the bench. So, I think that's another name that they'll certainly look into this offseason, but ultimately I feel as though he'll probably, want to look elsewhere, maybe for a team that's a little bit more ready to contend in the next couple seasons.
How about some of those reports out there that Carmelo Anthony would consider either Washington or Philadelphia if he got bought out? Is that still in play? I mean, it's hard to figure out what's going on with the Knicks.
That Melo thing changes, That Melo thing changes pretty frequently here.
Yeah, the Melo story seems to be like a daily soap opera almost. There's new plot twist every day. I think it was always a long shot. I don't think that his desire to come to Philly from the reports that were out there was strictly based off its proximity to New York City, where obviously he has his family, his wife and his kid, and the situation going on with his off court life. So I think that was kind of just a report that he would be willing to consider those cities in order to kind of stay close. I don't think that that's something that, really ever gained too much steam. I don't think the Sixers, not that they wouldn't necessarily want Carmelo if the opportunity presented itself, but I don't think that they are, moving things around or going out of their way to try to make a situation like that happen. So it seems, that particular report seems as though it would be a long shot.
Yeah, another name you mentioned in the article at 97.3 ESPN.com. We're talking with Michael Kasky-Blomane, our Sixers insider, and is Patty Mills, another guy out there. So obviously shooters is the direction that they're looking at, it seems like, in free agency.
Yeah, pretty much, Mikey. You got it right on the head. I think they're looking to surround, their young playmakers now in Simmons and Fultz with guys that, can spread the floor, play a little defense and just fit that prototypical, wing position. Another name that I heard this morning that could potentially, probably wouldn't draw too much interest from the fan base, but is a guy that could potentially fit would be Aaron Aflalo. He's a guy that's bounced around the league a few times, but he's a wing player that brings some hard-nosed defense, can spread the floor a little bit, and would probably be relatively cheap. So, basically, I think that, the Sixers would probably look at a couple other guys. There's Serge Ibaka is hidden free agency, and he would potentially pair, pretty nicely next to Joel. Maybe they would look at that. But I think the overriding theme of their free agency is going to be, veteran shooters. That's the vibe I'm getting, is that they're, basically looking hard at anyone that can really spread the floor for the young guys that get their feet wet.
What about an Ersan Ilyasova reunion? Is that a possibility?
I've seen a lot of people talk about that. On the floor it would fit, I guess. Obviously he played, pretty well during this half season he was here last year. I think that, at the time when he was not, when they decided to let him go at the trade deadline, it was, they weren't really in agreement about the long-term future. I think he was looking for a little bit longer of a deal, at this point in his career, where the Sixers, as we kind of touched on, they're looking to keep the cap space open for the long term. I think they would potentially be willing to bring Ersan back. I know that Brett was a big fan of him, both on the floor and in the locker room when he was here. He did a great job, obviously, working with, Dario and helping him develop his game. So I think they would be willing to look at it, but it would have to be in a more short-term scenario, whereas, the vibe that I got when Ersan was leaving, when initially was traded from the team, was that he was looking for, something with a little more stability and a more long-term situation.
By the way, check out the Sixers Summer League schedule. We have it posted now at 97.3ESPN.com. They will be on TV frequently in the Summer League. That starts Monday night in Utah. They will also be in the NBA Summer League, which is out in Vegas. Markelle Fultz is slated to be a part of those rosters. We'll see how much they use him. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, also one name that you'll recognize on that list. Michael Kasky-Blomain is at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. Check out his Sixers stuff right now at 97.3ESPN.com. All right, bud, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good one.